So we are set to go. As Kurt Menefee mentioned a moment ago, the New York Giants won the inaugural game at Cowboys Stadium 3 years ago, and they're a perfect 3-0 ever since. Giants winning the toss, selecting to get the football. And here comes Eli Manning, 31 years young, a native of New Orleans. One of 11 quarterbacks in NFL history to win multiple Super Bowls, one of just 5 to win a pair of Super Bowl Most Valuable Player awards, and he's on top of his game again here in 2012.
Boy, he sure is, and coming off an awfully impressive victory from last week, and a guy who has played awfully well here in Cowboys Stadium as well.
Put it in the hands of Ahmad Bradshaw, and he's bottled up at the line of scrimmage. Bradshaw, 12 carries, 43 rushing yards in the victory over the Redskins last week. And of course, that was on the heels of back-to-back games where he got it nearly 60 times for over 300 yards. So clearly, the offensive line doing its job.
They've done a nice job, and they've created some holes, for their running game. And as I said coming into this, the Giants were unable to run the ball in week 1, even when the Cowboys were playing coverage. And they shut down the run the same way they did on that first play.
Manning has to dump it off. And a loss of a yard on the completion to the former Dallas Cowboy over the last 4 years, Marcellus Bennett. For Dallas defensively, number 4 overall in the NFL. They have Jay Ratliff back in the middle of their defense, but Dan Connor, the man on the spot today, trying to replace Sean Lee.
And I don't think you do replace a guy like Sean Lee. He's their leading tackler. He had a great game against these Giants in their first meeting, and he, along with DeMarcus Ware, are really the 2 primary playmakers for this group.
Manning steps up, looking down the field, and it is caught. And still on his feet inside the 40 is Ruben Randle, and the rookie out of LSU has dropped all the way down to the 23-yard line.
Well, DeMarcus Ware obviously is the premier pass rusher in the league. They've got to be able to secure him. They double him with Bear Pasco to give Eli Manning time, and he's able to navigate the pocket. They go 2 verticals with Victor Cruz in the middle. It ties up the safety, and then that allows one-on-one on the outside. An excellent job of coming back and making a play on that ball.
So the gain of 56 on the completion to Randle. And back into the hands of Bradshaw, and he's dropped for a 1-yard loss. Big plays, it's a big part of this Giants offense. That's a 36 play this year of 20 or more yards, most in the NFL.
Well, hey, I mean, this Cowboys defense has given up a lot of big plays in the passing game throughout the season, even though they've been good defensively. And what did Rob Ryan tell us just yesterday? He said, hey, we cannot give up the big play. We saw enough of that last year. 3rd play of the game, big play down the field, Ruben Randle.
Manning stepping up and tries to flip it. Is that a forward pass or is that a fumble? The penalty flag comes down. Our referee today is Scott Green. We're just underway here at Cowboys Stadium. And a 56-yard completion, Manning to Ruben Randle, as the Giants bang it on the door inside the 25-yard line.
We'll see what this flag is about. I couldn't tell if Eli was, I didn't think he was across the line of scrimmage. I think they'll rule that
illegally
as a forward
touching
pass.
the ball by a lineman, number 76. That penalty is declined. It's an incomplete pass. 3rd down.
Go back and take a look at the deep ball to Ruben Randle, and you're going to see Victor Cruz here in the middle. He ties up Gerald Sensabaugh, and then that puts Ruben Randle one-on-one on Mike Jenkins on the outside. But because Eli was able to move around within the pocket and at least give his receiver an opportunity, they then put themselves in a position here where they are on this 3rd down play.
3rd and 10. would-be target Hakeem Nicks. It's incomplete. So out comes the field goal unit led by Lawrence Tynes.
They try to come back with that back shoulder fade to Hakeem Nicks, and he had a chance. Good coverage there by Morris Claiborne, but a well-thrown ball by Eli Manning giving Nicks at least an opportunity to try to make a play on the ball.
Tynes has attempted more field goals than any kicker in the NFL so far this year. He's hit on 19 out of 21 from 41 yards out and right down the middle. Opening drive, thanks to a 56-yard completion to Randall. Giants jump in front 3-0. Giants out to a 3-0 lead. Back in week 1, Dallas came away 24-17 winners. Tom Coughlin called the game alarming, upsetting. No run game, no time for Manning to throw. Only sacked Tony Romo twice. Giants were the first defending Super Bowl champion to lose the season opener the following year in the last 13 seasons. Lance Dunbar, the rookie out of North Texas. And he is dropped at the 11-yard line by Stevie Brown. Tony Romo, 32 years young, Burlington, Wisconsin native. Certainly one of the most intriguing success stories in recent NFL history. This is an undrafted guy coming out of college. Been to the Pro Bowl. Also one of the most polarizing figures in the NFL.
Yeah, I would say so. And there was a poll came out this week, and he was rated as one of the most overrated players in all of football. And I argue that point. This, as you just said, Tom, this guy was an undrafted free agent. He's a 3-time Pro Bowler. If anything, I think he's one of the most underrated players in the National Football League.
Coming out throwing on first down, and that's Des Bryant. And he is thrown to the mat by Corey Webster. And already some jawing, going back and forth. Webster had a tough week 1, got burned by Bryant on a 38-yard score and by Kevin Ogletree on a 40-yard touchdown. Felix Jones getting a start in place of the injured DeMarco Murray.
Felix Jones on the carry.
Dallas offensive line, they flip-flop tackle position. Smith and Free.
Yeah, from where they were last season, Doug Free was the left tackle, and then of course Tyron Smith was playing right tackle. And as a first-round pick out of USC, you knew it was only going to be a matter of time before he made the transition to the left side. And he's been their best performer on the offensive line, but even Tyron Smith has some room for improvement.
Jason Witten in motion on his 3rd and 3. Good protection. And defending on his spot. Catch is made by Miles Austin. And it looks like he has enough for a first down. He does at the 22-yard line. The Giants are 24th overall defensively. Yet they are 9th in points per game allowed. So they've gotten stingy when it matters.
Well, and I think they do some of the things that good teams do and good defenses do. They do a nice job of creating takeaways, and then they're pretty good at getting off the field on 3rd down as well.
Romo rolling, trying to direct the receiver to go down the field, and then once making the turn was Jones. It was thrown back behind him.
Well, you saw Tony Romo. He's trying to signal then to Felix Jones to take it up the sideline. And as you're going to see as they work out here to the right, there's nobody up the field. Nobody in behind, and Romo's trying to get Felix to go vertical, knowing that he was already on the sideline. Felix Jones didn't even know where he was on the field. He ran out of bounds.
See the numbers the last 5 games for Romo against these Giants. Very, very solid. On a 2nd down and 10. Flag is down. The pass is incomplete. Chris Canty knocking Romo to the deck. Canty just came back last week after missing the first 5 games with a knee injury.
Offense number 63. 10-yard penalty, third down. Correction, second down.
See the hit at the end of the play. Chris Canny comes in right on Romo, and the hands to the face was on center Ryan Cook. You know, on Canny. Canny's able to get off of that, but that's where the penalty came in, and you know, they're fortunate that the Giants are that they didn't get called for that. He came in with the crown of his helmet, and clearly there was contact to Romo's headgear, and you don't get away with that very often.
The Giants had declined the penalty, so they had marked off the yardage, and now they're going to make sure everybody's on the same page.
New York has decided to decline the penalty. It'll be third down now, third down.
$11 up, 9 down for Tom Coughlin, the 66-year-old Waterloo, New York native.
Pretty interesting decision there by Tom Coughlin, turning down the penalty, figuring that giving the Cowboys offense 2 opportunities to pick up that first down was better than giving them just 1 chance.
Oh, day to throw, and that's Miles Austin. And he's up to the 45-yard line. There is a flag down in the secondary. And the Giants are pointing at the Cowboys side.
Illegal contact, defense, number 28. Penalty is declined. First down.
Ron Hosley, the rookie out of Virginia Tech.
Yeah, one-on-one there on Miles Austin and him working the slot, and you know, pretty tough duty, and whoever the defensive back is, it's going to be lined up, whether it's against Miles Austin in the slot or vice versa up against Victor Cruz for the Giants. I mean, that's an all-day affair in there trying to guard those 2 guys.
Philip Tanner is checked into the Cowboys backfield as they try to find a running game without Murray. And again, down the middle and stepping in to make the interception is Stevie Brown, replacing the injured Kenny Phillips. And how big has he been? That is his 5th takeaway this season, which is tied for most in the NFL, and an early mistake by the Dallas Cowboys.
You know, and right from the start, that play didn't look good because Tony Romo comes out from center, and the play fake was not where Romo thought it was going to be. He comes out to his right, Philip Tanner goes to his left, and when Romo comes off of that, I'm sure that threw him off, and then he never located the safety in the middle of the field, Stevie Brown, and Stevie Brown comes underneath it and then makes the interception. And you know, you called it Stevie Brown now, what, 4 interceptions, and it's been more the ball finding him as opposed to him making plays on balls.
The 19th takeaway by this Giants defense this season. That's second most in the league, only to Chicago. And now Manning on first down. And the catch is made by Bennett at the 23-yard line.
Yeah, and you saw Romo over there talking to Des Bryant. Now what he's anticipating Bryant to do is to square that route off and cross the safety's face. And when you're throwing a timed route like that, if you expect the receiver to do something and he doesn't do it, then you have bad things happen like we just saw. And that's why Romo was trying to talk to Des and find out exactly what it was that he was doing.
518!
David Wilson, number 1 pick of the Giants in this year's draft out of Virginia Tech, carries to the 20. It'll bring up a 3rd down and 3.
Tom, that's really about the only thing that I can figure on that play, because with a safety in the middle of the field, that guy should never not be seen. I mean, when you've got a throw like that, you know where that deep safety is. And you know, I'm sure Romo saw Stevie Brown, but Des didn't do what he thought he was going to do, and that wouldn't be the first time if that's the case.
No, in fact, we all remember that game in Chicago, or against Chicago, the last time the Cowboys played at home. Direct snap to Ahmad Bradshaw. What a play, getting down the line by the 4-time Pro Bowl nose tackle Jay Ratliff. He did not play in Week 1.
He missed the first 4 games of the season, as a matter of fact, and coming off of last week's win against Carolina, you know, Rob Ryan said it's the best he has seen him play since he became defensive coordinator, and that's really saying something because this guy has been a dominant force in the middle for a long time.
Now Tynes. This one from 37 yards out inside of 40. Made 31 in a row. Make it 32 in a row. So the Giants 2 drives. They cash in for 3 after the interception by Stevie Brown. 4 plays, only covering 8 yards following the interception by Stevie Brown. And the injured Sean Lee said, hey, look, I can't play, but I can help my teammates.
Well, he's a great leader, and he will be of some help. And, you know, they're going to miss him, but it doesn't look like they're missing him so far in this game. The Giants unable to get anything going on their few running attempts in this game so far.
Dunbar from a yard into his own end zone, and he is dropped inside the 15. So the Cowboys trying to get it together after the early interception by Romo. Spectacular venue, Cowboys Stadium, opening up the roof, opening up the side panels on this glorious autumn Sunday afternoon. And the Giants a pair of field goals. A little more than halfway through this opening quarter. Talk about no DeMarco Murray. He's out with a sprained foot, which he injured after piling up 93 yards in a little more than a quarter against Baltimore 2 weeks ago. He rushed for 131 yards in the Week 1 Dallas win over the Giants.
Well, he's the real deal, and they hate not having him in the lineup. I mean, he was such a big factor in that win in Week 1.
Of course, Jones is a former #1 pick. I think a lot of people seem to have forgotten about, Felix Jones. He had a good rookie year, had a very strong second half in 2009, including the great postseason. He was there every down back in 2010. Then last year got hurt with a shoulder injury, and that's when he lost his job to Murray.
Well, he lost his job, had the shoulder surgery, as you said, and then he came into training camp and failed the conditioning test, and that's about a first for me. I mean, I've seen offensive linemen not make the test. I've never seen a skill player come into camp and not make a running test, but that was the case with Felix Jones. It's taken him a while to get back in shape, and now they're relying on him because of DeMarco Murray's injury. Excuse me.
Looking down the field to Miles Austin, and it's intercepted by Corey Webster. He's across midfield inside the 40 and run out of bounds close to the 30-yard line. 2 possessions, 2 turnovers for Romo and the Cowboys.
Well, it's just about going up and trying to make a play on the ball. Now this ball's thrown to the outside. Miles Austin had inside position, but Romo's got to shade it away from the safety, Stevie Brown, who already has an interception himself, and Webster's able to then go up and make a play on it and get a nice return, setting up this offense with great field position once again.
First down, first and 10 Giants.
20th takeaway now by this Giants defense. Second interception of the year for Corey Webster, and the Giants right back in Dallas territory at the 31. Manning. Catches made inside the 20, again to the tight end. Last 4 years, Martellus Bennett played in the shadow of Jason Witten.
And you see Tony Romo there, and that was the real concern coming into this game. What do the Giants have to do to win this game? I think they've got to be able to run the ball, and then for the Cowboys, they've got to protect the ball. Now, they have not done that. But what has helped them so far is with this offense, on the first possession, the deep ball gets them down here, then the turnover, and they've not been able to punch it in. So even though the Giants have dominated this first quarter, it's just a 6-0 ball game.
Bradshaw eludes one tackle and barrels his way inside the 10 down to the 8-yard line. Bradshaw only practiced for a short time on Friday. He's been plagued his entire career with foot problems and ankle problems, and they've surfaced again this season. And DeMarcus Ware unable to get up so far for the Cowboys. So while they check on the 6-time Pro Bowler, we'll step out. Giants trying to add to a 6-0 lead. Well, DeMarcus Ware able to get up and walk to the Dallas Cowboys sideline, where he has taken a seat. We'll bring you an update on him shortly. First and goal for the Giants. Bradshaw down to the 2-yard line.
Bradshaw to carry.
Giants with a win today have a chance to open up some major separation inside the NFC East. Both Philadelphia and Washington losing today. Philadelphia getting blown out of the gym by the unbeaten Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, a lot of people thought that game would be different with I guess the firing of Juan Castillo and some of the changes that were made, but it was anything but. It's a big possession right here for the New York Giants.
Andre Brown gets the ball and he will find the end zone. A touchdown for Andre Brown, with Henry Hydnoski leading the way. So following the second interception thrown by Romo.
You see Henry Hydnoski, the fullback, he's the guy who has to secure the edge. That allows Andre Brown then to get into the end zone. And that's a good job of punching it in. We saw Tom Coughlin after they settled for their second field goal, and there was some real concern on his face knowing the opportunities that were missed. This time they capitalized.
Point after is good by Times. One possession, a field goal. Second possession after a turnover, a field goal. Another turnover, and this time a touchdown. Led by the man they call Hydnosaurus. Undrafted as a college free agent a season ago, Hydnoski's become a big part of this Giant offense.
I love my last name. It's a perfect fitting for a fullback. Some of the nicknames I had, the Polish Plow, the Polish Hammer, most recently the Hydnosaurus. I was close to my first touchdown. I reached up for the ball and got stopped a little short, but hopefully my first touchdown will come one of these days.
So the question I have for you, Mr. Aikman, if your nickname is Hydnosaurus, what kind of celebration do you have when you score a touchdown?
I'm looking forward to seeing it. I'll tell you that. I don't know when he's going to get it.
Well, we thought he had it last week, that reception against the Redskins. Once more, Dunbar brings it out. And this time he'll get across the 20. And still on his feet along the sideline. Good return this time by Lance Dunbar. When they put him from the practice squad onto the active roster, said, how do you feel about it? He said, all I know is I'm told get the ball past the 20.
Well, he does a nice job on that return, but there was some poor tackling on the Giants' part there also. And now we'll see what the Cowboys are able to do. You know, already coming into this game, I don't want to say lacking confidence, but a little concerned about what they were doing or had been doing offensively, and this has not been a good start for them.
Felix Jones, maybe back to the line of scrimmage.
Jones on the carry. Michael Bowling with the tackle.
Told you the Giants 20 takeaways, and take a look at the points off turnovers. 70. That's most in the NFL. On the plus side, turnover ratio, and the Cowboys going the other way. Confusion, penalty flags down. Matthias Kiwanuka was sprinting on the field as the ball was being snapped.
Yeah, they were trying to get guys off the field. Kiwanuka was trying to get onto the field. You see, the flag came out, and it looked to me like the Giants were going to get called for too many men on the field.
There's no foul on the play.
Jason Garrett beginning his second full season as head coach of the Cowboys. He's the first Cowboys player to become the team's head coach. Took over midway through the 2010 year, and you see 2 games above the 500 mark.
Yeah, and you saw there he was wanting to argue with the official on why the flag was picked up, and then he caught himself realizing that he didn't have time to argue, that he had to get a call in to Tony Romo.
Hey, 59! 59! What up? 180! 160!
Bad snap. Romo trying to find the ball. the field, and it's underthrown slightly. Well, they might have to punt, but it's far better than what could have been.
I got to tell you, I've seen, having covered a lot of Cowboy games over the years, I've seen a lot of this. And I've also seen the Cowboys get fortunate to where the ball just seemingly bounces right back up into Romo's hands. And that time he got outside the pocket. It looked like he could have kept it and got some yardage running the ball, and they were almost able to make something out of it, but just a terrible snap by Ryan Cook.
Brian Mormon the punt, and a fair catch by Randall at the 15-yard line. So 2:17 to go. A game so far dominated by the defending Super Bowl champions. Welcome back to America's Game of the Week, right here on Fox. A pair of Tony Romo interceptions leading to 10 New York Giants points. And the Giants with a 13-0 lead, 2:17 to play in the opening quarter. Good balance offensively so far for the Giants, starting this drive from their 15. DeMarcus Ware back in there for the Cowboys, and Wilson nowhere to run. Nice play made by Bruce Carter in his second season out of North Carolina. Tore his ACL his senior year for the Tar Heels and wasn't able to play for the Cowboys till midway through last year, and now he's a starter.
Yeah, he's a starter, and there's a lot expected of him, especially now with Sean Lee going down, and he's having to call the defense, and that's a lot. That's a lot of responsibility. He has been playing well. He's had a nice season. You add the responsibilities then of having to get everybody lined up, get the calls out there. We'll see how that impacts, and that was a nice play on the last one.
2nd and 11. Victor Cruz, his first catch of the afternoon. Playing a 3rd down for the Giants. What a day today on Fox. Coming up later tonight, Foxtoberfest continues. Game 4 of the World Series. And Detroit on the ropes. It'll be Matt Cain for the Giants, leading 3-0. Max Scherzer on the mound for the Tigers. That's coming up next, following the OT right here on Fox. Joe Buck, Tim McCarver and company set to bring it to you from Comerica Park. Incomplete. 3 and out for the Giants.
I think Eli had to get that ball out probably sooner than he would have liked. He got pressure immediately to his front side, and the one thing that we have seen from Eli, yeah, he's hard to sack, and the line does a pretty good job overall of protection, but he also gets it out of his hands and just won't allow himself to get sacked all that often, and that time he just had to unload it.
Des Bryant waiting back at his own 40 on a punt by Weatherford. A good punt. Chasing Bryant. Has it slipped through his hands and picks it up at the 20-yard line. And that's where he's wrapped up. Great coverage. The ball is loose. Is this the 3rd turnover of the opening quarter by the Dallas Cowboys? It is. Bryant took a lot of heat for a couple of punt returns last week. Catching one over his shoulder, holding the ball far out from his body, nearly fumbling there, and he does here.
Well, it's just not disciplined football. He talked about it last week. It was a mistake when it happened then. He was talked to about it, said it wouldn't happen again. Happened 7 days later. He is able to get the ball back into his hands, and then you've got to secure the football. And we've seen now 2 turnovers that have been on Des Bryant. The first interception that Romo throws, a poor route on his part, and then he doesn't secure the football in a crowd on a punt return.
Herzlich stripped it. Michael Coe covered it up. And yet again, 3rd time out of their 5 possessions, the Giants start in Dallas territory. Bradshaw for 2.
And you got to think back to that Chicago Bears Monday night game as well. They bring a blitz. Romo gets it out. He runs the wrong route. Interception return for a touchdown. That completely changed the dynamic of that game. And the 2 plays in this game have certainly impacted where we're at now here in this first half. And Des Bryant can be a spectacular player that makes big plays, but I don't know of any player in this league that can do the things that he has done to hurt your football team and stay in the game.
Second down on the 13 of Bradshaw. Back to the line of scrimmage. That's the way we will tie a ribbon around this opening quarter. All Giants thus far. Fox NFL Sunday back after these messages and a word from your local Fox station. Hard to imagine the Cowboys could play an uglier quarter. 3 turnovers leading to 10 New York points. Giants looking for more. 3rd and 8 from the 13. Flag down. Manning is dropped by DeMarcus Ware, but we wait on a penalty.
They didn't stop it, so it looked like it's going to be on the Cowboys. You know, had it have been a false start, they would have blown the whistle dead.
Offside. Defense. Number 94. 5-yard penalty. 3rd down.
So they got him in there in the neutral zone, and then the ball was snapped. And you know, I'm surprised Eli, knowing that, he may not have known the flag was thrown, and then you're a little uncertain as a quarterback whether you turn it loose. Otherwise, you take a shot. It's a big 3rd down right here. I mean, Rob Ryan in this defense, considering what has happened here, this defense has done a nice job. This game could be 21-0 right now.
The 3rd and 8 becomes 3rd and 3. Manning out of his shotgun. Quick throw. And did Bennett hang on? No. That looked like a good throw by Manning.
That was a really good throw, and it was good coverage by Bruce Carter. Because of the way the Cowboys want to give help to the wide receivers, then Martellus Bennett's going to get some opportunity there in the middle, and he had a chance to make a play, and had he have been able to secure that ball, it would have given the Giants a 1st down.
But now Tynes on for his 3rd field goal try, and for the 3rd time it is good. So once more, after another turnover, after a penalty, went from 3rd and 8 to 3rd and 3. Jason Garrett's defense able to hold the Giants for the 3rd time to a field goal, but it's been ugly.
Well, it has, and it started on that play there with the miscommunication between Tony Romo and Des Bryant, and they just have not played well. It's hard to believe it just started the 2nd quarter with all that has gone wrong here for the Cowboys, but the fact that they're just down 16 points, considering all that has taken place, is really surprising. I mean, 1 score by the Cowboys, and they're right back in this thing.
Consider the Giants on offense have run 19 plays. 13 of the 19 have been inside Dallas territory.
But what the Giants are 1 for 4 in the red zone, you know, as far as coming away with touchdowns. And that's why I think Tom Coughlin, yeah, you feel good about being up 16-0, but very disappointed, I think, overall in the fact that they weren't able to capitalize more than they've been able to.
Will drive Dunbar back through the end zone. Well, this week, do you have what it takes to be part of the league? Don't miss the newest episode of the show where the limits of friendship are never in doubt. Some of the stars are here today, in fact, and the action begins this week only on FX. Heck, all the stars are out today here in Dallas. Even Troy Aikman's here.
Oh, yeah. All the stars.
Romo on 1st down. Safe throw to his main man, Jason Witten. Witten coming on strong following the lacerated spleen back in the preseason. No one gave him a chance to play in week 1, and he did. What an inspiration that was for Dallas. Last 3 games, 25 catches for the future Hall of Famer Jason Witten.
Yeah, and against the Giants, it's kind of been feast or famine for him. I mean, he's had some awfully big games, and there's other games where he's not as big a factor, but I think he's the right guy. If you're Tony Romo trying to get back into a comfort zone, feed the ball to him.
Not much room for Felix Jones, and we check in for the first time back in Los Angeles with Patrick O'Neill.
Thank you, Tom. Troy, well, the stars of the NFL this year, the Atlanta Falcons, they remain unbeaten. Matt Ryan putting on a clinic against the Philadelphia Eagles. Julio Jones, that touchdown. Matty Ice had 3. Jones went for 123. Next week, the Cowboys go to play those very unbeaten Atlanta Falcons. Tom, Troy, Pam.
A very impressive one today indeed for Mike Smith and the Falcons. Intercepted by Jason Pierre-Paul, and it is a touchdown. And the slam dunk emphatically. Pierre-Paul had the breakout game here at Cowboys Stadium last year. Couple of sacks, a safety, perhaps a season-saving blocked field goal, and now an interception for a touchdown.
He just plays this beautifully. He recognizes he's not going to be able to get to Romo. Romo pulls up, and as soon as he then starts to throw his direction, he goes up. That's just a great job by a great player.
Pierre-Paul was asked about the blocked field goal last year. That was a field goal attempt where Dallas was trying to tie the game. You may remember the Giants had lost 4 games in a row. They were in a free fall. They came here, got the win. They asked Pierre-Paul about the block kick. He said, I don't even remember it. I can promise you he'll remember this. Interception, returned for a touchdown. Giants mauling the Cowboys. Pierre-Paul, 28 yards, the interception, the first of his career. This one returned for a touchdown. We're not even 2 minutes into the second quarter, and the Giants lead 23-0.
Well, you go back and take a look at this play. Chris Canty, first of all, he got some pressure on Romo inside, but that's just a heads-up play by a really smart football player, recognizing he can't get there. And then as soon as Romo turned to throw, he just backed up, jumped up, and made the play. And there's the hit by Canty that came in late. Not much of a bearing really on the throw because that's where Romo was going with it. But as a quarterback, you don't anticipate that a guy like that is going to intercept the pass.
Romo, the last time he played in front of the hometown crowd, threw 5 interceptions in a loss against Chicago, and that's 3 of them in a little more than a quarter.
I think coming into this game, Tom, there was a lot of pressure on this Cowboys team, even though they had won in week 1. I think because of the success that the Giants have had here at Cowboys Stadium and all of the discussion about that, this team needed to come out here and play well. Obviously, that has not happened. But I think as you look now, as they're going to be faced here with a 3rd and long, that in some ways it should free this team up. I mean, whatever pressure Romo may have felt, whatever pressure any of these guys felt, or however tight they may have been, maybe they weren't. I don't know. It sure looks like they might have been. But, you know, with the score as it is now at 23-0, I've been in this situation. I think as a quarterback, you just start turning it loose. I mean, you don't really have a whole lot to lose at this point, and you start, in some ways, become a more dangerous quarterback.
3rd down and 7. Lofted towards Miles Austin, and great coverage by J. Ron Hosley.
Yeah, it was good coverage, but it didn't look like Miles really saw the ball in flight. I mean, it was a ball that was out in front of him, and yet I never saw him really try to accelerate and go get it. Now, he's had some, you see, he pulled up a little bit. I think he misjudged where that throw was. It was actually a well-thrown ball, and he has had the hamstring issue, and he doesn't have the burst that you're used to seeing from him. But I just don't think he saw that one and exactly where it was going.
Mormon back and healthy again. Puts a foot on it. Short punt. And Ruben Randall will stay away from it. Frustration for Romo and the Cowboys in a big-time hole, but a long way to go. Well, Wade Wilson talking things over with Tony Romo. Talking about the Giants having never lost here at Cowboys Stadium, it really has not been much of a home field advantage regardless of opponent. For the Cowboys, just 14 wins against 12 losses.
5-18.
The Giants won the first ever game in this building. Ball is loose. And the Cowboys are going to catch their first break of the game. Bradshaw put it on the ground, and the rookie Morris Claiborne picked it up.
Ahmad Bradshaw, take a look and see what happens, and he's got it secured, but in against his belly, and it gets knocked out. We've seen that a time or two from Ahmad Bradshaw.
So we'll see if the Cowboys can take advantage of the turnover, and it's Dan Connor, the injured Cowboy. Still tending to Dan Connor. Just came over as a free agent from Carolina, former third-round pick of the Panthers. Getting playing time due to the injury to Sean Lee. Catch made by Witten. And they'll spot it at the Giants 45.
You see Dan Connor come in with his helmet right there, and you know that was the impact that at least put him on the field or down on the field, and it didn't look to be like there was a lot of contact there with Bradshaw for the ball to come out. Kenyon Coleman was the one that was there, but it wasn't a vicious strip of any kind.
180. 160.
Romo on a 2nd and 3. Got an eye on Austin and just plain missed it. Let's check in once more with Patrick O'Neill.
All right, Tom, the only other game going on in the afternoon taking place in Kansas City with the Raiders. Carson Palmer, Denarius Moore, 9-yard touchdown. First TD of the game, 175th of the career of Carson Palmer. 13-6 seconds away from halftime. Tom, Troy, and Pam.
All right, Patrick, thank you. 3 interceptions, a fumbled punt return, and a 23-0 deficit. The first things first, try to just cash in on a 3rd and 3. They're not even close.
Not even close, no, and it wasn't close on the second down throw to Miles Austin either, and one that should be routine. You know, on the second down play, now you come back on 3rd down, and you know, I don't know if Romo was expecting him to curl outside. It certainly looked that way, but Ogletree curls to the inside. And you know, you want to say great job by Giants defensively, but they didn't really have to do much there. It was just poor execution more than anything by the Cowboys offensively on those 2 incomplete throws.
And over end punt by Mormon. Fair catch by Randall. Clearly the frustration continues to build for the Cowboys, trailing 23-0. Tom Coughlin, his 9th season as head coach of the Giants. Of course, has won a pair of Super Bowls.
5-18.
First down throw and a first down catch made by Hakeem Nicks. Let's check in downstairs with Pam.
Well, Tom, Cowboys linebacker Dan Connor got looked at for a couple of minutes down on the sideline. Then he hurriedly walked back into the locker room. Connor has a neck strain. His return is questionable.
Well, Pam, thank you very much. Injuries have been a huge part of Connor's career. His first 4 years in Carolina. Went on injury reserve twice. Once for a knee injury and then 2 years ago for a hip injury. Andre Brown, a first down run, and he's up to the 25-yard line.
You know, the Cowboys try to disguise what they're doing within the secondary and whether or not they're going to have run support up there, and they showed that they were going to have extra run defenders in the box. And Eli Manning then checks, and he's always right. He was right in the first game, and they ran the ball throughout that game against a 7-man front, which is very conducive to running the ball. They just didn't run it very well. And so far in this game, whatever the Cowboys are doing, Eli knows it, and they're not confusing him at all.
Manning flushed out of the pocket, looking down the field, delivers a strike but then batted away by Danny McCray. Looked like it was momentarily in the hands of Nix. McCray starting now his 5th straight game for the injured starting strong safety Barry Church.
Yeah, they've had, we've talked about some of the injuries the Cowboys have had. Barry Church is out for the rest of the season. Of course, Sean Lee, and now, of course, Dan Connor, and they've had other guys who have been in and out of the lineup, Jay Ratliff. But I'll tell you, the last team that wants to hear about it is the New York Giants. I mean, think back to last year, even this year. I mean, they've overcome a lot of guys who have gone down, and you don't get any sympathy in this league.
Back in the hands of Andre Brown. Hard running up across the 30. Brown, one of the most amazing stories in all of football. He's only 25 years young. Originally a 4th-round draft pick by the Giants, was waived a year later, beginning a journey of 4 different teams, cutting him 8 times over the next year and a half, re-signed by the Giants, cut again, practice squad, active, and now a big part of their offense.
He's run well when he's gotten his opportunities. The concern with him is in pass protection.
Rolling on 3rd down. Outstanding defensive play by Orlando Scandrick, and the Giants will punt.
Well, Orlando Scandrick he's an awfully good 3rd corner in covering that slot guy. And I said it last week, I think Victor Cruz is the best there is in football, when he's lined up inside. But Orlando Scandrick will give him a run for his money. That's a pretty good matchup for both teams, really, and a good job on 3rd down, being able to get off the field.
Well, are we seeing the first of a number of changes made by Jason Garrett? Not Des Bryant waiting on the punt this time. Cole Beasley will handle that one well out of bounds. So if you're standing on the Dallas sideline, boy, you are searching for answers, and you're searching for answers right quick. You've turned the ball over, Troy, already 4 times in the game. You're not out of the game. It's 23-0, but you better get it going pretty soon.
Well, I think they're going to have to. If they're going to get back into this game, they've got to start having some success. And what we've seen from Tony is a guy who's not really on right now. And there's been some miscues that have happened. I'm not suggesting that they're all Tony's fault. Some of them are the wide receivers as well. But if they don't get something going here, you wonder if Jason Garrett is going to think that maybe they should go to Kyle Orton, at least for this game.
Romo finds Witten the ultimate security blanket. Seems like he's the only receiver where when you throw to him, good things have happened here today.
Yeah, well, I think that he's the one guy that Tony Romo clearly has confidence in, and he has that with Miles Austin as well. But Miles isn't at full strength. We've seen that, and the position's hard to play. Let's be honest. But when you're less than confident in where guys are going to be. And that seems to be the case with Des Bryant, and it seems to be the case on that last 3rd down throw with Kevin Ogletree. Although Ogletree was pretty good in week 1.
Nice throw, nice catch in traffic made by Austin. Like Romo, Austin, an undrafted free agent. Went to Garfield, New Jersey High School, started Monmouth University. And for 3 years, he was used primarily as a kick returner. Now among the best receivers in the NFL. Blitz coming. Romo gets it away and finds Austin, who's wrapped up crossing midfield at the 48-yard line by Prince Amukamara.
Got some pressure right up the middle. I think Chris Canny has had a nice game so far. He on a number of occasions in this first half has been able to get pressure right in the middle, and I don't know that that's really where Romo wanted to go with the football, because the Giants were pressed across the board, and he had a chance if he had some time to try to take a shot for a big play.
2nd down and 5. Blitz coming again, and it is Austin. Run out of bounds at the 24-yard line, slipped behind Amukamara.
Yeah, they come back with the same coverage where they're pressed on the outside. Amukamara and Miles Austin just beats him right off the line of scrimmage, and they're fortunate, the Giants are, that wasn't a bigger play than it was, because Miles Austin was a couple steps up on him, and that could have very easily have gone for a touchdown.
A little bit of life for the first time today for the Cowboys offensively. to Austin once more, and it's overthrown. Dangerous indeed, because closing fast was Stevie Brown.
Oh, Stevie Brown, he's had a nice season since coming in for Kenny Phillips. Of course, he had the interception in this game. We talked about what he's done in some of these other games, and Kenny Phillips, former first-round pick, he might have a hard time getting his job back when he's healthy.
Well, for Brown, that is now interceptions in three of his last 4 games. Whitten down to the 4-yard line. Whitten on his way to becoming the Cowboys' all-time leader in career receptions.
Well, Michael Boley, I'm not sure what he was doing on the play, but he just let Jason Whitten run right by him. Even when you're in zone coverage, when you've got a receiver who comes into your area, you pick him up. And Boley was watching the backfield, and Whitten just ran an out route, and nobody was there.
Jump ball, no chance.
Well, this is the drive that the Cowboys needed, clearly. They now have put together some positive plays. They've gotten some completions. Tony's got to feel better about that, and now it's a matter of whether or not they can punch it in and come away with a touchdown, and something that they've had a hard time doing. They were 0 for 3 last week in the red zone. Overall, they're near the bottom of the league, and that's been a problem for them.
Felix Jones will find the end zone.
The Cowboys do a good job with this, and Tony Romo really sells pass, and because he holds it as long as he does, it gets linebackers and everybody running out. You're going to see Stevie Brown here and the impact that this play action has on him. He's out of the way, and then you hesitate those linebackers just enough, and Ryan Cook was then able to secure the linebacker level and get the touchdown.
Now the point after by Dan Bailey. 5:22 to play until halftime, and a spark for the first time today. Talked about this game being a long, long ways from being over. We'd love to welcome the men and women in uniform serving around the world, watching our broadcast in 175 countries and abroad, ships at sea, on AFN, the American Forces Network. We cannot salute you enough and say thanks for all you do. God bless you all, fighting for still the greatest country in the world.
Saw the Giants, they were pointing at the time that the ball was being snapped. Looked like they thought that left guard Nate Livings might have moved. See Chase Blackburn. But a good drive by Dallas nonetheless. When they desperately needed to get something going offensively, they were able to do it. Now we'll see, there's still plenty of time left here in this second quarter, but we'll see if the Giants really are able to get anything going themselves on this possession, because the Cowboys overall have not been bad defensively.
No, they haven't.
You wouldn't know that if you just tuned in and saw the score. But it's really been due to all the turnovers.
David Wilson from the 3. And they bring it up through the 24-yard line. 5:17 away from halftime. What's coming up, Kurt Menefee?
Coming up on the Visa Halftime, we'll have highlights from a busy Week 8, including the Steelers. Their uniforms were ugly, but their win wasn't. Plus a thrilling finish in Detroit as the Lions squeak past Seattle. And the Falcons remain perfect, pounding the Eagles. Plus a World Series preview, all coming up on the Visa Halftime.
All right, Kurt, some of the headliners from games earlier today. Matt Ryan and the Falcons remain unbeaten. Look at those numbers by Ryan. Tom Brady and the Patriots roll over the Rams, and well, you talk about a team needing a win in the worst sort of way. The Lions picking up their third win. First down, Manning looking for Cruz. And overthrows him. Cruz looking for a flag. Good coverage by Brandon Carr. Of course, Cruz had that spectacular 77-yard touchdown to beat the Redskins last Sunday.
You see Brandon Carr, and he's been a good addition to this defense, and he's allowed them. I think right there is probably what Victor Cruz was wanting the penalty on, is when he got an arm in there on that left arm himself. But Brandon Carr has helped this defense. He, along with the rookie Morris Claiborne, do some things that, quite simply, they weren't able to do a year ago.
First carry for Bradshaw since he fumbled. And he is thrown to the mat by Carter. So now a 3rd down and long, and if this Dallas defense can come up with a stop, get the football back, 3 timeouts remaining, going up until halftime, perhaps a little momentum.
Well, yeah, I mean, if they're able to make a stop here and the Cowboys come away, really with any kind of points, I mean, they feel really good about it then going into halftime, and as bad as it's been, then having the momentum coming out in the second half.
3rd and 8. But Cruz is wide open in the middle of the field, and that is a 1st down to the 43. And Eli Manning says, take that for momentum.
Victor Cruz, he releases off the ball. It looked like Danny McCray might have been the guy who was responsible for being in there to make a play on that. But, in visiting with Rob Ryan the other day, I asked him, am I crazy, or, shouldn't the defense on 3rd down be getting hands on Victor Cruz? And he said, hey, I agree with you completely. And yet they weren't able to on that 3rd down. He got a free release off the ball, zone coverage. And we've seen Victor Cruz, really against man coverage, you don't have a chance. But against zone, he has a great feel for where the holes are.
That didn't look good from the start, and then through the hands of Cruz.
That was a really well thrown ball by Eli Manning, laying that over the head of a defender and then dropping it in front of the other defender to Cruz, and a drop ball by Cruz, who had 5 drops coming into this game. 3, of course, happened in week 1 against the Giants, but that should have been caught.
3:34 to play halftime. Giants have all their timeouts. Blitz coming. Put it in the hands of Nix. And he is wrapped up at the 47-yard line. It brings up another 3rd down for the Giants. Nix continuing to get healthier and healthier. He had a broken foot during the offseason, and once he got back, he injured his knee, missed 3 games. Has not had more than 53 yards receiving since his return, but he said he's feeling better.
He has gotten better. I mean, he's still not at 100%, but certainly better than where he was a few weeks ago.
That was Cruz in a slot. The Troy circle. And he had an eye on Cruz, but Manning driven to the deck by Jay Ratliff, so the Giants will be forced to punt with 2:45 to play here in the 2nd quarter.
The Cowboys are able to play man coverage underneath. Again, another hit on Eli Manning, but Victor Cruz in the slot. They've got man underneath with safety help, and that's just it's a tough coverage to throw the ball against when you've got a defender who's able to play the trail technique, which the Cowboys were able to there.
Dane Harris is standing back. Already had a punt. Return fumble by Des Bryant. Well, it's our pleasure at Fox Sports to let you know that that young man right there, who you were hanging out with before the game, country music star Kenny Chesney, will be performing at halftime during our telecast here on Fox Thanksgiving Day.
That'll be a great show, and if you've never seen Kenny Chesney, then you owe it to yourself to tune in and watch it. And the great thing about Chesney and him playing at halftime of that game, of course, the traditional games, he's a big football fan as well. We're happy to have him here today.
We're really excited to see him here on Fox Thanksgiving Day. You'll be here, Mr. Aikman. Boy, you just seem to manage those home games on Thanksgiving. A lot of the rest of us working stiffs are on the road.
I alternate between here and Detroit.
All right, Cowboys in hurry-up mode, 2:15. 3 timeouts remaining. And wide open is Des Bryant. And he's got it at the 40. Cuts it back and all the way down to the 25-yard line. Somebody lost Des Bryant. And were that ball not slightly underthrown by Romo, that's a touchdown. We're the 2-minute warning. And is that pendulum known as momentum beginning to swing in the Cowboys' favor? $55-yard reception, Romo to Des Bryant. Cowboys trailing 23-7, 2 minutes to play until halftime. It's first down at the Giants' 24-yard line. Play at a wide open Jason Witten at the 5-yard line, and again Romo has to get up after a big hit from Canty.
Watch these two guys right here. You're going to see Corey Webster's on the outside, and he plays it as though he expects to have safety help. And if he were to get help, that would have been Antrell Roll. But as best I can tell, Tom, it looked to me like it was a broken coverage by Corey Webster, and he misunderstood what the coverage was. And everyone ran the right thing except him. And what did we just see? Chris Canty, once again, getting the inside pressure on Romo.
Second down, Romo spins out of trouble and is dragged down by Pierre-Paul.
Jason Pierre-Paul has already had one big play in this game, and he has a load on the outside, and you're going to see him as he goes right through Tyron Smith. And you get him moving, and then a strong athletic guy like JPP is able to just drive him right into the ground and then get to Tony Romo. That's just an excellent rush by Jason Pierre-Paul.
Saw him reach out there to get Romo. His wingspan has been measured at 81 inches.
I'm guessing that's good.
I guess it is. All out blitz, third down. And it's overthrown. And Chase Blackburn that time putting the hit on Romo. Well, it'd be about a 50-yard field goal try here.
You see Philip Tanner, and you got to go get that guy, and he tries to go low, and that's why Chase Blackburn was able to make the play, and that's what you worry about with a young back. I mean, everybody just talks about their ability to run the football, but a big part of that is also in pass protection. Romo's been banged around a little bit here in this first half.
Bailey, 12 of 13. His only miss was from beyond 50. And this one is launched straight through the uprights from 51 yards out. So the Cowboys have scored the final 10 points of this second quarter.
Well, I think Dallas is, all things considered and how this game unfolded and how, far down they could have been, for them to come back and make this a 2-possession game right now and score the last 10 points, assuming that they're able to make a stop here in the last 58 seconds against Eli Manning, not that they're going to feel great, but you've certainly got to feel a lot better about where you're at coming out to start this second half.
Well, you can read Des Bryant's lips 3 times. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. .58 ticks remain until halftime. Cowboys turned it over 4 times in the first 18 minutes of this game. Wilson going to bring it out. Still on his feet. Big collision at the 20.
Well, we talked about how they lost a great leader in Sean Lee, and we've seen Jay Ratliff, be pretty communicative on the sidelines today. You know, whether it's him talking with Tony Romo or trying to get the defense fired up, but you know, somebody obviously has to step into the shoes and that void of Sean Lee's.
Well, it looks like Eli and the Giants, with all 3 timeouts remaining, are going to try and put some points up on the board, but DeMarcus Ware will have no part of that. Clock continuing to run. Look, if you're Dallas, why wouldn't you call a timeout right here? I mean, granted, it's only 45 seconds left.
The timeout now, and I thought it would have been called a little bit sooner. But yeah, you're right. I mean, to get a good stop there on first down, I'm sure the Giants would be very content. You know, I'm surprised they were coming out and trying to do too much, do something conservative. I think it was smart then on Eli Manning's part, not forcing anything or not throwing an incompletion. But I think after that first down play, they would have been very content just going in with a 13-point lead.
Instead, it was Tom Coughlin who called the timeout. Don't forget, coming up, it'll be the Visa halftime report. Kurt, Terry, Howie, Michael, and Jimmy will be along with scores and highlights. That will be coming your way momentarily. Tom Coughlin last year, 65 years young, the oldest head coach to ever win a Super Bowl.
55 to Mike.
Stopped immediately as Bradshaw. We've called the name Bruce Carter a lot so far today. There is a penalty flag down.
Offside. Defense, number 94. 5-yard penalty. Second down.
Second time they've got Ware.
Well, you mentioned Bruce Carter, and he really has had a nice first half. He's been very active, and Rob Ryan feels like he's further ahead at this stage of his career than Sean Lee was at his. And so I don't know that he's going to continue to progress the way Sean Lee did, but that's a pretty good compliment there.
And it throws and through the hands of Victor Cruz.
I was talking about a little bit earlier, and Eli's ability to recognize the pressure and get the ball out, you know, just before he's going to absorb the hit, and usually he throws the ball pretty accurately when he does those things. I mean, that was good coverage there by Orlando Scandrick, and a ball that was perfectly placed on the sideline. It looked to me like a ball that Victor Cruz should have been able to make a play on.
So now third down. Cowboys show blitz. They're going to hand it off to Bradshaw. And he is stopped. 30 seconds left, and now the Cowboys are going to call timeout. Or are they? Yes.
That was not a good possession there by the Giants. You know, with 58 seconds to play in this half, and the Cowboys are going to get the ball back and still have 2 timeouts left. They get, you know, any kind of return. They're in good position here to even come away with more points before the half and potentially make this a 10-point game or even better.
But still somebody other than Des Bryant back there returning punts for Dallas. After his problems on a couple of returns last week, the fumbled return already today. They're coming after this punt. Didn't get there. Very short punt. But it'll take a Giants bounce, more than one. Down to the 24-yard line. And 14, now 13 seconds left. Romo, 3 interceptions. The first quarter and the start of the second quarter. For the last 2 drives, a touchdown, a field goal, to give yourself a little bit of hope looking ahead to the second half. They're just going to take a knee. And bear in mind the Cowboys will get the ball to begin the second half.
Well, and I think that's why Jason Garrett's content taking a knee here and not trying to force anything. And you're right. The last two possessions there by the Cowboys offensively, specifically Tony Romo, they started to find their groove.
Halftime score 23-10 Giants. Stay tuned for the Visa halftime report coming up after these messages and a word from your local Fox station. Welcome back to America's Game of the Week. Cowboys Stadium, Arlington, Texas. Giants jumped in front thanks to 4 Dallas turnovers, 23-0. We invite you to follow your favorite team all season long. Go to itunes.com/NFL. The Cowboys score the final 10 points in the second quarter. And we'll get the football to begin the second half. Giants lost a season opener to this Dallas team 24-17. They have won 5 of 6 since. Their only loss, a chance to win it at the end, losing in Philadelphia. And a win today, and not only they remaining atop the NFC East, but they would really be in the driver's seat with a very rough schedule looking to the back half of this 2012 season. Tyne spins it away, and Dunbar deep in his own end zone. Thought about it, brings it out. Let's check in downstairs with Pam Oliver.
Well, Tom, talking to Cowboys coach Jason Garrett, he told me that he's pleased with the way the defense is sort of coming along. He feels the offense got some momentum in that half as well. He also told me linebacker Dan Connor that he suffered a stinger and is not looking well. As for the Giants, heard one player say, man, why aren't we blowing these guys out? Tom Coughlin also wondering something too. He's wondering why his wideouts aren't winning those one-on-one matchups.
Ma'am, thank you. Romo coming out throwing on first down. And Miles Austin will draw a penalty flag on the defender, Prince Amukamara.
He's locked up one-on-one with Miles Austin, and a good release by Austin, and then he tries to get to the outside just enough there with that right arm, and I think Prince Amukamara knew it. We were visiting with Perry Fuel, defensive coordinator, a few weeks ago about Amukamara, and he said, it's time for him to be more consistent and make more plays. I mean, he's not doing enough as a first-round pick. Now, he's had some injuries that we're well aware of, but yeah, he's been very inconsistent, and offenses know that, and they've gone after him.
Kill 80. Kill. 23-30. Bang. Wait at it. 20 seconds.
20-yard penalty. For a gain of 8. Amukamara, you may remember, injury-plagued rookie year. He broke his foot the very first day of training camp after a lengthy holdout. His first game back had an interception against Philadelphia, then lost his confidence, lost his playing time, and after being injured early this year, their general manager Jerry Reese said it's time to play like that #1 pick.
I'll tell you, looking at him right here, he looks like he's out of breath, and the second half just started. I'd be a little concerned about that.
Kill. 23. Bang. Billy, 180.
Opposite Kevin Ogletree on this pass play to Bryant, and he got it inside the 30-yard line. He beat Corey Webster.
Again, locked up, no safety help, one-on-one, and when Webster turned around, I couldn't tell if he just didn't locate the ball. Des Bryant is going after the ball. There was some contact that was made as Bryant's trying to make a play there on the ball, and it looked like Webster was thinking that there was offensive pass interference, but Romo had an opportunity to work either side. Instead of going against Amukamara, he decides then to take a shot at Corey Webster.
Bring the blitz. Cowboys pick it up, and it's Witten to the 22-yard line. Philip Tanner picking up the blitz that time.
And a lot of the decision-making in that depends on really what the route is. With Des Bryant, what Romo likes about him is his physicalness. If he's got a go route with a press corner, as he had there with Corey Webster, that he's going to go up and make a play on the ball. And he did that beautifully on the last play. Whereas if it's more of a precise route, in cuts, out cuts, things of that nature, that's where he feels a little more comfortable with Miles Austin.
180!
And off the field is Jones, who had a very quiet first half. 8 rushes, only 21 yards for Jones, trying to replace the injured DeMarco Murray.
Well, this has got to be a little bit of a concern right now for Tom Coughlin. I mean, as we said, the Cowboys, the Giants never delivered the knockout punch, and as Pam's report stated, they're wondering why they haven't blown the Cowboys out. Well, I'll tell you why. They were 1 for 4 in the red zone, coming away with touchdowns. And it keeps a team hanging around, and then the Cowboys started putting it together, and they come out here in the second half, and they have a nice drive going.
Incomplete.
Almost pass intended for Jason Witten, complete in the end zone. Second down, 2nd and 10.
Jason Pierre-Paul again all over Romo.
That used to be a penalty there. You come around the helmet at all on a quarterback, and that would be called. But now it's got to be considered a forcible blow to the head, and clearly that was not.
Romo slips by one tackler and able to maybe pick up a yard.
Romo on the carry.
We've seen, the connection with Romo Witten is really kind of what got Romo going a little bit, and he's trying to work him in the middle of the field here because of the coverage. And this time, Witten's done a nice job of getting open and giving Romo somewhere to go with the ball. And that time, pretty good coverage.
Third down and 10 for the Cowboys. From the 17. Miles Austin, and he spins close to the goal line. And denied the touchdown is Austin, but it's 1st and goal, Dallas.
Take a look and make sure that he did not get in, and he did not. He comes up short of the goal line, and here's the route. He gets turned loose, and he gets into that zone. Romo hangs with him and is able to fit the ball in before he gets to the safeties.
Tanner in the I formation with Lawrence Vickers in front of him. And bottled up, was unable to get in.
Philip Tanner on the carry.
Philip Tanner grew up here in Dallas, went to Justin F. Kimball High School, played collegiately at Middle Tennessee State. This will be the 9th play of his Dallas drive to begin the second half. And without DeMarco Murray, fell behind big to tuck in the Giants, and now a yard away. And a point after away from making it a 6-point spread. Denied the touchdown once more as Tanner. Blackburn able to stop it.
This is a big third down play here. Yeah, I can't help but think back to that Week 1 game when the Giants got the turnover, the interception by Boley, and they got it inside the 5-yard line, got it down to the 1-yard line, and had 3 downs to get it in, and they couldn't. I thought that was a turning point in the game. This could very well be, if the Cowboys are unable to come away with a touchdown right here, it'd be very demoralizing for this offense.
They're going to throw it this time. And too tall for James Hanna. Well. Jason Garrett is thinking it over. And it looks like he has already made the decision. He is going for it on 4th and goal.
Well, he shouldn't have had to, because James Hanna is on the back line, and he was just left wide open. And Romo saw him. Initially, it didn't look like Romo was going to spot him, but then he did, and he just was unable to deliver an accurate pass.
Cowboys 3 of 5 on 4th downs this season. They've converted their last 3. And Felix Jones in the backfield. Romo rolling to the end zone. Game on here at Cowboys Stadium. It's a one-score game.
At least Witten up the field, and then because of that, they're able to get Romo on the edge. It was just a one-man route. Romo's either going to throw it to Witten or he's going to keep it for the touchdown. They cover Witten. He gets on the edge. Easy touchdown.
Point after by Bailey is good. Opening possession in the second half. A touchdown for the Cowboys. 23-17 Giants. David Wilson staring right into that sunshine. Waiting on the kick from Dan Bailey. 23-17 Giants get the ball for the first time here in the second half. Wilson up to the 22-yard line. The Cowboys celebrating the touchdown, getting back in this game. Eli and the Giants hoping to stretch it out. 11 plays, 86 yards. 20-yard penalty helped it. A 30-yard pass play to Des Bryant did as well. By the Giants, first possession here in the third quarter, and wrapped up after a gain of a yard by Anthony Spencer is Ahmad Bradshaw.
I talked about it coming into this game, Tom, that I really believe that for the Giants, now it's even more accurate, that if they're going to win this game, they really have to get more out of the running game than they've had. They've had 2 good runs in this game. A 14-yarder by Andre Brown and a 12-yarder by Ahmad Bradshaw in the first half. Other than that, they have done nothing on the ground, and the Cowboys, like they did week 1, have completely shut the running game down and have still played coverage in doing that.
Broken up. Ernie Sims, they just signed him this week. Former #1 pick out of Florida State by the Lions. Spent 4 years there, a year in Philly, a year in Indy. He's gotten a lot of snaps today.
He has gotten a lot of snaps, and Rob Ryan said he was going to. And so now this is a pretty important third down for the Giants. I mean, with the momentum that the Cowboys have had coming out of the first half to start this second half, 17 unanswered points. Right now, the Giants need to do something.
Only 2 out of 9 on third down. Eli cuts it loose. Batted down. That's Brandon Carr. And it is 3 and out for the Giants. And now the Dallas Cowboys, who look dead in the water through the first quarter of this game, will get the ball with a chance to take the lead.
Well, they are, and because of the coverage I keep talking about is 2 deep safeties and then man coverage underneath. It's a hard coverage to throw the ball against. The Cowboys have been able to run it because the Giants just have not gotten anything going on the ground.
Wayne Harris from the 27. Good return up to the 41-yard line. Romo and the Cowboys getting help from their defense. 6-point game. A disastrous start to this one for Romo. 3 interceptions of his first 15 attempts. None in his last 17.
About the time you suggested they might be getting Paul Orton ready to go. Romo's gotten hot. He must have heard you.
You're unbelievable. It's the second week in a row now. Kicked in front of the bus. I would expect no less. fake. Backup tight end John Phillips, and that's a gain of 8.
You know, I joke about it, Tom, but you know, this team's going to go as Tony Romo goes, and they're in the early going. He was not going anywhere, and that's why I wondered, you know, what they were thinking. Not certainly suggesting it's something that they should do, but he's gotten very hot here, as we saw by those numbers, and even the body language by everybody when they took the field when we were at commercial timeout. You look at these guys. I mean, they're ready to go. I mean, it's amazing, and I've always said it, how quickly you can regain confidence, and right now this Cowboys unit has it.
Second down and 2, they're going to throw it. And it's Miles Austin. A first down to the 27-yard line.
Well, they play zone coverage, and we've seen him get into this zone already a couple times today. And once you get past that initial coverage, you get into the seam, and the only guy that can make a play on that then is the safety. And you know, if you see that then as the quarterback and you drive the ball in, it's a hard route to defense, and they've been wearing that out.
Gain of 25. Austin up over 100 receiving yards, and Witten to the 20. That'll be a gain of 7. Well, Romo just a moment ago passes the Hall of Famer Roger Staubach for second place on the Cowboys all-time passing list, and guess who's up next?
We'll be passing that one probably sometime next year.
It'll be a while. That would be Troy Aikman, who had over 32,000 passing yards, number 1 all-time in Cowboys history. They pitch it to Jones. He's stuffed. Looked like he had some running room momentarily, but Blackburn, who just continues to play so well for the Giants. Tom Coughlin said after the game last week, he is the most difficult player to take out of my lineup, and he might be forced to take him out right now.
Well, based on his reaction and him pounding the ground, I mean, it looks to me like he believes it's pretty serious.
Chase Blackburn walking along the Giants sideline. It looks like he's on his way to their locker room. Third down and 4. First down reception made by Witten at the 15.
They try to give help on the outside to those receivers, Miles Austin and Des Bryant, and so you then have one-on-one with Jason Witten, and that was a concern coming in. You know, for Perry Fuel, how do we handle him? And Michael Boley was on him that time. They try to mix it up a little bit, but that's a pretty good matchup for the Cowboys. Witten, as you talked about earlier, I mean, he's one of the all-time greats at that position.
Witten once more. And he is slammed to the deck at the 1-yard line. First and goal, Cowboys with a chance to take the lead.
We've seen Romo take some shots, you know, inside, but on this play, he has pretty decent protection to where he's able to get the ball out, and a great job of finishing the play by Jason Witten. Boy, you look at the demeanor. I mean, in the first half, it was the Cowboys who were kind of walking around, and now it's the Giants.
Oh, dangerous there. Felix Jones can't get in from the 1-yard line. Of course, that was the gamble by Jason Garrett on the first drive of this second half. First down, stuffed. Second down, stuffed. Third down, open receiver. Romo missed him. But Garrett decided to go on 4th and 1. And Romo, after faking the handoff, rolled to the right, tiptoed into the end zone.
Yeah, so much for being conservative.
Romo will throw it. And it is a touchdown for John Phillips, his first of the year. The Cowboys are a point after away from erasing a 23-0 deficit.
Well, when Romo comes out off the play action, it's 2-on-1. And no matter, it looked like it was Antrell Roll, I couldn't tell exactly, but no matter what he decided to do, he was going to be wrong. Either Romo's going to run it in, or if he comes off of John Phillips, he's going to throw it to him for the touchdown.
I don't know about you. You didn't see this coming in the first quarter. The Cowboys have taken the lead, 24-23. Largest comeback in Dallas team history, 21 points. Most recently in '99 when they had a guy named Aikman at quarterback. Well, they have come back from 23 down here today, but a long way from wrapping this one up. And Wilson brings out the kick to the 23-yard line. And, you know, Troy, look, this place is filled with Dallas Cowboy fans, and a lot of them watching on TV right now. I don't think anybody felt, after a little more than a quarter, that this would transpire.
No, I don't think anybody would have anticipated this. And I'll tell you right now, with the Giants, they better be, I mean, this may be a blowout the other way if they're not careful, because offensively, the Giants have not done anything. I mean, they really have not. They had great field position and just could not get it into the end zone, and that's why the game remained relatively close considering how much damage had been done. But they've done nothing offensively.
Ahmad Bradshaw on first down, good run, and they've had very few of those today.
And I mean, let's credit Rob Ryan and this defense, you know, and they came in with a chip on their shoulder. I mean, all week long, Rob Ryan heard about how the Giants just didn't perform very well in that Week 1 loss, and he was kind of offended by it, to be quite honest with you, that, you know, hey, we had something to do with that. And they came out wanting to prove it again here today. And even though the Giants were able to jump up 23-0, it was no fault of the defense. In fact, it was really a great job by the defense keeping this team in it.
Contact, no flag. Third down upcoming. We invite you to call Star NFL to download NFL Mobile right now and get coverage of every NFL game. And, you know, Troy, while we have a moment, there are so many watching along the eastern seaboard, and our thoughts and prayers to every one of you with Hurricane Sandy and the damage that has been inflicted, potentially more to come. Please get somewhere safe. We're thinking of all of you.
Eli looking right into that sun, too.
Third down, crossing pattern. First time we've called the name Dominic Hickson. And that's a first down close to midfield.
Now you see how most of the field is shaded, but not where Eli Manning was standing. See, he's trying to just see what the coverage is, having a hard time. But he is able to locate Hickson in a nice design play, getting him underneath the coverage, you know, on the crossing route, and a big first down. I mean, to keep this drive alive and potentially to come away with points, but just to get something positive going offensively for them.
So first down of this second half. And Bradshaw, a gain of close to 5. We'll call it 4 on first down.
You know, remember a couple of weeks ago when the Giants went in against the 49ers, really a great run defense, and they did a nice job against them and came back the following week and, you know, ran the ball well. Last week, not so well against the Redskins. And I'm sure after that fumble, Tom Coughlin's hoping that Ahmad Bradshaw starts running angry again like he did after he fumbled against Cleveland and ran for 200 yards.
Yep, that was first carry of the game. Of course, Bradshaw, a very emotional player, smacked his teammate Victor Cruz on the back of the helmet after a play last week when he felt like Cruz didn't make a good block. It was a 15-yard run. He thought it should have been a touchdown. Had words with his coach, Tom Coughlin, over on the sideline. There's a head smack on Cruz. And then we saw this, saying, "Give me the ball." And Tom Coughlin said, "You get in the huddle."
Yeah, he said get in the huddle, and he wanted him to keep his emotions under control. I think Coughlin would rather see that guy from last week right now.
Another third down, this one 3rd and 2. Manning jarred loose and isn't intercepted. That ball popped into the air and into the arms of Danny McCray. Still waiting on a signal for sure. The officials are talking about it. What a hit by Gerald Sensabaugh on Victor Cruz.
Illegal hit, too. He comes in with the shoulder, just the way that they're coached up. Now, the ball lands on his leg, and Tom, it doesn't look, as best we can tell, it didn't go to the ground.
Nope. That's an interception. They're going to take a look at it as they do after every turnover. But it looked like it hit Sensabaugh on the backside, rolled up his leg, right into the hands of McCray.
Yeah, now I think that however it was ruled on the field is probably what they would stay with, because I don't know if there's a definitive look on it or not. This is probably as good as it gets. I mean, it looked to me like he did have it, and the ball did not touch the ground. But a ball that really kind of got away from Eli a little bit, had he been able to stick it on him with the safety there in the middle of the field, driving on that throw. If Eli had been able to put it on Victor a little bit better, then he's able to protect himself after the catch. But that was going to be a hard play to make for Victor Cruz.
What a hit by Sensabaugh. They do look at it. In fact, they're still looking at it. And now the referee, Scott Green, will walk to the sideline.
The previous play is under review.
That's not a challenge by anybody. That is a rule in the NFL this year. They did it after scoring plays last year. This year, they are reviewing every turnover play.
Well, I think that's smart that they do that, so you don't have to burn a challenge in order to review, when there is a change of possession. And they're going to do everything they can to make sure they get this one right. I mean, the Giants had started to get some momentum going. They picked up a first down. That would have been a first down as well. And pretty good job there by McCray. One, securing the ball with the interception, but then getting up and getting yardage off of it. Now, I think that's something worth looking at, too. If there's contact when he's on the ground, then the ball comes back.
Well, he was already on his feet, it appeared, by the time Cruz touched him, and that was a 22-yard return.
I think the question is, whether or not he was touched when he was on the ground. And that's probably what they're reviewing. I don't think there's enough there to overturn anything. But we'll take a look and see if there was contact made with Cruz at the time that he secures the ball. And Cruz's right leg might have got him while he was still on the ground.
Scoreboard, video board they have hanging over the middle of this field that runs from 120 to the other 20. It is spectacular to see it in person. It's almost beyond description, but I'm not sure standing on a sideline if you can see anything looking straight up. Saw Jason Garrett start to look up and said, "Now,
go put your nose on that flat screen at home, and then that'd be about what it's like looking up for these coaches."
After reviewing the play, it was a valid interception. However, the interceptor was touched by the receiver's foot. The ball will be placed on the 35-yard line. First down for Dallas. Please reset the game clock to 54 seconds. 54 seconds.
So as you pointed out, Troy, it looked like the foot of Cruz may have made the contact.
Well, obviously disappointing there for the Giants offensively, not being able to maintain possession and keep the ball. But now it's up to this defense and them trying to make a stop and get the momentum going back in their favor, and something they've been unable to do on the last several possessions.
Throwing on first down is Romo, and there is Chris Canty once more. Canty has had an outstanding game.
He really has. He's got an inside pressure, and this time he's going to loop all the way around to get to Romo. See the move that he makes there, and they bring Jason Pierre-Paul inside, but Chris Canty, who was inactive for the early part of this season, he was put on the PUP list, but he just came back a couple weeks ago, and he's had a nice game. Now, he started his career here with Dallas, and so I'm sure he's pretty incentivized to come out here and play well in Dallas.
That's been his first 4 years here with the Cowboys as a starter. The loss of 12, blitz coming again, and Romo just does get it away. Huge pressure. First time we've called the name Justin Tucker the entire afternoon.
Yeah, Romo, he's trying to, trying to get a call on Felix Jones, saying that Michael Boley, who read it beautifully, he comes through and then he tackles. There was clearly contact made on the screen. It was behind the line of scrimmage. You're going to see as Felix Jones is trying to make a catch here, Boley comes in and just took him out.
Third down, 22 Cowboys, 43.
Need to get to the 45-yard line for a first down. Tucker got his first sack last week against the Redskins. And it's Tanner caught from behind. How about Pierre-Paul running down Tanner in the open field? End of the quarter, Cowboys have taken the lead. We'll return after these messages and a word from your local Fox station. Back to America's Game of the Week here on Fox. It didn't look like it was going to be much of a game when we got underway. The Giants out to a 23-0 lead. Cowboys have scored 24 unanswered. And now we begin the final stanza here at Cowboys Stadium. As Mormon gets it away, and Randall will pick it up at the 14-yard line. And he'll be tackled right there. Bring you up to date on some injury news along the Giants sideline. How about it, Pam Oliver?
Well, Tom, the Giants defense will try to stop that Cowboys offense without their starting middle linebacker. Chase Blackburn has a hamstring injury to his left leg, and he is done for the day. Meantime, I saw Justin Tuck get worked on by a team doctor. They were checking out his neck and also testing his extremities, but he's been back in since.
Well, Tuck nearly had a sack a moment ago. Pam, thanks so much. Fourth quarter has belonged to the Giants this season. Now they have really labored over these last 6 possessions, but make no mistake, when it comes to the fourth quarter, that is when Eli Manning is perhaps better than any other quarterback in the league. And a first down throw and a first down catch all the way up to the 45 for Nix.
A beautiful throw by Eli Manning, and they're going to run the quick post route, and this is the guy here you've got to navigate. You throw it right off the back of his helmet. He's trying to get underneath the throw. There's Gerald Sensabaugh, and Akeem Nicks runs a nice route, but that guy can't get underneath that throw. And Buddy Ryan used to try to do that all the time and get that guy underneath the throw. It just doesn't work, and Rob Ryan, obviously, that's where he got it from.
First down, what a catch made by Randall, and that'll be a first down to the 44-yard line. And here we begin the fourth quarter, and here we go with Eli Manning.
Yeah, I mean, for as much as they have struggled offensively, now they did get it going on the previous possession, started to get some completions, but you called it. Fourth quarter starts, and off Eli Manning goes.
Well, she had 15 fourth quarter touchdowns, an NFL record last year. Bradshaw for a gain of close to 4.
You can just tell that the Giants are starting to sense the urgency of this right now. And the defense was able to make a big stop, something they had been having troubles doing against the Dallas offense, and now the Giants are, they're playing with a little more urgency. They get the 2 completions and a nice run there on that last play of 4 yards.
perfect throw. You cannot hand it to a receiver any better than that. That's a first down catch for Nick.
That had to be perfect, Tom, because Morris Claiborne was in perfect position. This is a long throw. I mean, he was driving on that ball, and anything less than perfect on the outside. It looked to me like he drug his right foot. I think that was a good call as far as a completion.
Well, they get off the play before there can be a challenge, and Bradshaw to the 29, a penalty flag is thrown. This will be against the Giants.
Holding, offense number 65. 10-yard penalty, first down.
Well, there's so many areas. There's a reason why the Giants are 5-2. I mean, obviously, their offense, their defense, their special teams, but they are a mistake-free football team. They've only allowed 5 sacks, second fewest penalties. They've only turned it over 9 times. This is a solid group.
No, it is. I mean, that's why they're 5-2 coming in. But that was they picked a bad time to come down with one now to start this possession here, or this drive here at 1st and 20.
Manning going to run it. And he gets about 3 yards back, caught from behind by Ratliff. Well, Ratliff in his 8th year, but he is still so athletic for such a huge man. 6'4", 303 pounds.
The guy who filled his spot when he missed those first 4 games, Josh Brent. He's a heck of a player, too. He's more of the traditional 3-4 nose tackle. Jay Ratliff, he's, as you said, he's a more athletic guy, can do some different things. Not the big 350-pounder you see in a lot of these other places.
Shot down after making the catch is Bennett, so it brings up a 3rd down and 5.
Well, it makes it a manageable 3rd down, but it also at least puts them in position if they want to try to kick a field goal here. They're now in field goal range. So that was a big completion there. And, of course, they want to come away with points, but you wonder if they would go for it on 4th down if they get anywhere close, if they just come up short. If they would, then that affects what you do here on 3rd down. But my guess is that Coughlin would go ahead and elect to kick and then try to take the lead.
Manning 4 of 4 on this drive, make it 5 out of 5, but that's not enough for a first down on a catch to Hickson. And Tom Coughlin says, Lawrence Tynes, make your way out on the field.
This shouldn't have been that hard. You're going to see him come across the middle, and there was no reason really for him not to push that up the field more so that when he caught the ball, he immediately has the first down. You can't always do that. You don't have the freedom to do whatever you want, but considering what they had there, that to me should have been completed for a first down.
43-yard field goal try to take the lead. And it is good.
Lawrence Tynes, 43-yard field goal against the Giants.
So the Giants answer and have recaptured the lead with 10:20 to go. Going to look at Cowboys Stadium here in Arlington, Texas. 10:20 to play. Giants 26, Cowboys 24. 8 plays, 60 yards. Manning perfect, 5 of 5. Dunbar again, deep in his own end zone, will bring it out. And he's up to the 22-yard line. Tynes his 4th field goal of the afternoon. Puts the Giants back in front. Welcome many of you joining us from around the country. New York Giants open this game with a 23-0 lead. The Cowboys turned it over 4 times in the first quarter plus. Dallas chalks up 24 unanswered points before the Giants just kicked a field goal, the 4th of the day by Lawrence Tynes, to recapture the lead. And here we are with 10:13 to go.
Defense number 91, 5-yard penalty. Still first.
Of the 4 turnovers early, Romo threw 3 interceptions, but the Giants were unable to deliver that knockout punch, settling for field goals rather than touchdowns, enabling Dallas to stay relatively close. Scored 10 points leading up to halftime. As a carry off to the left side is Felix Jones on a 1st and 5, and he picks up a yard.
And we wondered coming in, how much the Cowboys would miss DeMarco Murray, and so far the evidence shows that they've missed him a great deal, because Felix Jones really has not been able to get going, and they've not run the football very effectively, and the Cowboys really felt coming in that was going to be a key for them if they were going to be able to have much success, but it has all been on the right arm of Romo.
Through the hands of Des Bryant.
Good coverage there by Corey Webster, but a ball that Des Bryant has a chance to make, and Romo lays it out on the sideline, and Des just not able to get out of the break quickly enough to get the ball and secure the catch.
3rd and 4, Cowboys 4 of 10 on 3rd down today. You see the numbers for Romo. 4-man rush, good protection. Catch this time is made by Bryant. That's the 1st down. Or is it? Didn't look like he got a favorable spot there. And Scott Green says we're going to take a look. You can read the lips of Jason Garrett. He said, I can't believe the spot.
Yeah, you can see where the knee was down, the ball was beyond the 1st down, and it's a 1st down anyway. So yeah, it was a less than favorable spot, but still good enough. And they come right back to that same route on the outside to Des Bryant against Webster. Yeah, I talk about it a lot. That inside pressure is what's, can really affect a quarterback. And it's one thing when you got guys screaming off the edge, but as long as you can, that rushes your throws, but as long as you can step up in the pocket, you feel pretty good about it. But when you start having guys hitting you as you're stepping into throws, that impacts then how long you're willing to hang in there for guys to get open.
Blitz coming, Romo delivers. Caught by Whitten, and that's up to the 38-yard line. That'll be a gain of 5 on 1st down. Join the NFL and the American Cancer Society in the fight against breast cancer by supporting a Crucial Catch campaign. Visit NFL.com/auction to bid right now on authentic NFL pink gear worn by players and coaches. We have been celebrating Breast Cancer Awareness Month here in the NFL.
Yeah, and I want to thank the NFL and all these players that are out here on the field wearing pink. As someone who has a mom who's a breast cancer survivor, I know how tough that illness can be, and so many women have been affected by it. It's a great job by the NFL and these players.
Indeed. Romo sacked Linval Joseph. He had a big strip on a sack to force a Washington turnover last week. Boy, he's become a force for the Giants.
Yeah, Linval Joseph, he's gotten the inside pressure, but here's Justin Tuck, and this is what Doug Free, the right tackle, can struggle with at times. When you get the bull rush and a physical, strong guy that he's got to then try to hold up. Tuck, as he gets pressure, he forces Romo inside, and then Linval Joseph. I've been impressed with what I've seen from Linval Joseph in all the games we've had.
It's coming again, 3rd and 5, and again the Cowboys deliver. Romo to Austin, he beat Hosley, and that's in midfield.
In a lot of ways, that's what football comes down to, is who's going to win on 3rd down. Who's going to be able to get off the field, and which offense is going to convert and keep drives alive. And the Cowboys did not start out very well, but they have been able to convert pretty well here on 3rd down.
2 big 3rd down conversions on this drive. Austin up over 100, Witten up over 100 receiving yards. Bryant's knocking on the door. Little delay. And that did not fool anybody. Ball is loose. Is that Stevie Brown again?
Who else would have been?
It is. Huge turnover by the Cowboys. Their 5th of the game.
See Felix Jones. Comes in, he's loose with the ball. The ball is hanging loose down low, and he runs right into the back of Ryan Cook, and the ball comes out.
Tire gang hanging around back in Los Angeles, waiting for the OT, and then we'll get you to World Series Game 4 in Detroit. It's still 6:40 to go here, and the Giants, after the turnover, give it to Bradshaw. That's a gain of 8 on the first down.
Now we'll go back and take a look at the fumble, and you see Felix Jones. He has the ball. He's trying to secure it. As he then goes to put it in one arm, he drops it down, and he runs into the back of Ryan Cook. You know, ball just comes out. I mean, that should not happen. And he's got to be better with securing the football. And Stevie Brown, he tried to pick it up initially on the move, and he might score if he picks it up cleanly. And almost lost an opportunity to even get the change of possession, but he was then wisely able to fall on it.
Bradshaw, a first down and more to the 26-yard line. And speaking of the World Series, Trey Menifee has more on what's coming up.
Well, you mentioned it. Game 4 of the World Series comes up in just a bit. Miguel Cabrera and the Tigers shut out twice during the regular season, but Pablo Sandoval and the Giants have shut them out the last 2 games here in the World Series. Game 4 comes up 8 o'clock Eastern time. Tom?
Thank you. First down, Giants. Bradshaw. Back to the line of scrimmage, 2nd and 9. Clock under 5.5 to go.
Well, some of the tough running, that they were unable to get through much of this game. They didn't get anything on that run, but we're starting to see some things pop a little bit and get some of the running game going that they struggled so much with. And that's taken then, one, it takes time off the clock, and it takes a lot of the pressure off of Eli Manning.
Bradshaw dives forward and gets to the 21-yard line. Big play coming up here. 3rd down, closing in on 4.5 to go. The Giants score a touchdown. You never say never, but you're in a world of trouble if you're the Cowboys.
Well, I mean, just think about it. Even if they get a first down and still have to ultimately kick a field goal, It's a 1-possession game. And just think of the amount of time that comes off the clock. And so this is a big 3rd down for Dallas right here.
Hey, you got nothing. We're this one.
Catch short of the first down is Hickson.
Yeah, and that's one that Eli Manning would like to have back, because Hickson was out there in the flat all by himself, and it was just a ball that was poorly thrown. And so Hickson not able to catch the ball and stay on the move. Had he have been able to do that, then he picks up that first down probably pretty easily.
So now Tynes on for what would be his 5th field goal of the day. He's hit from 41, 37, 36, and 43. He's among the best in the game, Lawrence Tynes. The fumble by Jones as the Cowboys were on the move. Leads to 3, and now the Cowboys need a touchdown. Bring up the speed as we have 3:31 left. Giants only 23 points off of 5 Dallas turnovers. Cowboys 24 unanswered points after falling behind 23-0. Giants trying to go 4-0 here at Cowboys Stadium. They played in the very first game. Lawrence Tynes kicking a 37-yard field goal as time expired in a 33-31 win. And now it's Lance Dunbar trying to turn the corner, flag down. He is tackled at the 22-yard line.
We got several flags thrown.
We had one along the sideline. You had another thrown basically in the middle of the field. And the officials are huddled at the 20-yard line.
All right, there are 2 fouls on the play. Holding, receiving team, number 27. Illegal hands to the face, number 58. On the kicking team, by rule, will be spotted at the end of the run, first down.
So there's a hold on Frampton. And then Herzlich, hands to the face.
I'd say that's hands to the face. Wow. Well, we'll see what happens here. You know, we talk a lot about Eli Manning and what he's been able to do in the fourth quarters, and he's done it on the biggest stage of them all. And you know, now's a chance for Tony Romo, you know, with all 3 timeouts and over 3 minutes to play, and they need a touchdown, and you'll see what he's able to do.
14 fourth quarter comebacks in his career. First catch today by Kevin Ogletree, who had the monster game in week 1. 8 catches, 114 yards and 2 touchdowns, and a flag down on the play. Both teams are pointing at the other.
Illegal contact, defense, number 28. 5-yard penalty, first down.
Yeah, this is not even where Romo was looking, but I saw this when it happened. I mean, a lot of contact at the top, and that's where the flag came in on Hosley. You know, again, it didn't affect what Romo was doing. He was working the other side of the field the entire way.
Giants blitz. What about the catch from Witten? Oh, goodness. Man, is he soft.
Pretty good. Pretty good for a guy who was getting criticized early in the year for drops. You know, and then he makes a catch like that.
He is soft.
Well, he's just an absolute professional in every sense of the word. He's a great teammate, he's a great leader, and he's a great player.
And we mentioned probably well, he's on pace right now, 3 weeks from now, to break the Cowboys' all-time franchise record held by Michael Irvin for career receptions. He might get there today. That'll be a gain of 9. He's run out of bounds. That's Witten's 13th catch of the afternoon. 122 receiving yards.
Well, I said it coming in that it's been kind of feast or famine for Jason Witten against the New York Giants. He either has a really big game or he doesn't really do much to impact the outcome, and this is a pretty big game.
Missed 1 game in his career with a broken jaw. Number 14 and a first down to the 45.
Well, give Perry Fuel credit. Defensive coordinator, this time he puts Michael Coe on him. You know, so they're going to try to play him really with a safety over the top and let Coe work him underneath, and yet he's still able to get open. And they've tried a lot of different coverages against him, and so far just nothing's been real effective.
Romo on first down. Off the fingertips of Bryant. We talked about the injury to Chase Blackburn earlier. Keith Rivers limped off a moment ago. We're down to the final 2 minutes. America's Game of the Week, and it's been a good one. And on that last incompleted pass, Antrell Roll went for the knockout punch on Bryant and was injured on the play.
He came flying across there, and I'm not sure how Antrell Roll missed him, but had he have hit him, that would have been called, a penalty on him for a hit on a defenseless receiver.
Roll able to walk off at the 45-yard line. 1:59 to go, and dropped back at the 45 as a flag comes in late. Romo wrapped up by Justin Tuck, but we do have a flag, and this might be against the Giants for holding in the secondary.
Holding, defense, number 28. 5-yard penalty, first down.
Well, that's Jaron Hosley once again, and it's against Miles Austin, is who he's locked up with, and he just gets turned around, and then he starts grabbing, and that's what they call. And Justin Tuck, he had done a great job of getting pressure inside and making the play on Romo.
That's a huge call. Austin to the 28. Of course, you're down 5. Field goal is not going to help you. Can Romo get the Cowboys into the end zone?
Yeah, they got Miles Austin, and he hooks up, and then Romo had to navigate the umpire there in the middle of the field. But you can see how slippery Romo can get.
1:28 to go. Romo to Witten. That is his 15th catch.
Well, they've worn that route out. I mean, they've thrown that one over and over and over. You get inside leverage by the defender, and you run the out route, and then you just got to make a good throw, and that's what Romo's been able to do time and time again.
Witten ties a career high with his 15th catch, 139 yards, a gain of 9, and just inside the 20. And 1:23 to go. Cowboys have all 3 timeouts remaining. Blitz coming, and there may have been movement. Or was a timeout called by the Giants?
Yeah, I think it came from the sideline. Tom Coughlin ran down there to the line judge and was able to get the timeout call. There's Tom Coughlin going down the sideline, and I'm not sure exactly what happened, but he's communicating with someone upstairs who didn't like something that he saw on the defensive alignment or what Dallas was showing offensively.
Started early and started ugly. 23-0. Interception returned for a touchdown for the Cowboys. Scored the final 10 points of the first half. Took the lead. Giants got a fumble recovery, extending their lead to where it is now at 5. And here we are with 1:23 to go. Romo trying to engineer the 15th fourth quarter comeback of his career. Talked about it earlier. Among the most, if not the most polarizing quarterback in the entire NFL. Couldn't hang on this time, and hopefully our audio technician along the sideline down there is okay.
3rd down, 3rd and 1 at the New York 19.
Coming up next, the OT presented by Lowe's, and then on to Joe Buck, Tim McCarver and company for Game 4 of the World Series. Giants leading 3-0.
The Cowboys obviously trying to do all they can to come away with a touchdown. They don't want to leave any time, though, on the clock to do it. You give the ball back to Eli Manning with a chance to come back himself.
Off the fingertips of Ogletree. And a flag comes in late.
We'll see what they're going to call here, but from what I could tell, it looked to me like Prince Amukamara played that ball about as well as you could play it. You're going to see here on the outside, and the initial contact, it looks like it's more contact given by Ogletree.
Fourth down.
No foul.
Yeah, I thought that was textbook coverage by Amukamara. You know, the contact initially there off the line of scrimmage was initiated by Ogletree, and then at the end, there was the normal contact that takes place. I think they did a good job of picking that up. Now, here we are at 4th and 1.
1 for 1 today on 4th down. That was on the quarterback keeper by Romo from the 1-yard line. Romo rolling, in trouble. Throws, and it's intercepted. And who else would it be? A penalty flag is down. Stevie Brown comes up with his 3rd turnover of the game. But again, we wait on a penalty.
Holding offense. Number 68. Penalty is declined. First down.
So the Giants get the football on the 6th Dallas turnover of the game, the 4th interception thrown by Tony Romo.
There for a minute, it looked like Romo was going to get outside the pocket. It looked like Romo was going to get outside the pocket, and you're going to see Linval Joseph, who peels back and gives enough color to keep Romo from feeling like he can scramble to the outside. And then once Romo started retreating, he's in no man's land there. He's just now trying to throw it up and give his team a chance to make a play. But give that defensive front credit for the pressure, and specifically Linval Joseph. Even though Romo probably outruns him, I think he sees color flash, and he doesn't think he can beat him to the outside.
So now the Giants trying to protect the football and put this one on ice. Cowboys started the game turning it over, and on their last 2 drives, they turn it over. The fumble by Felix Jones when all they needed was a field goal to go back in front, and now needing the touchdown on a 4th and 1, an interception.
Well, I won't even count the last interception because that one had to be thrown up. But let's just say they had 6 turnovers in the game. Let's just say 5. You don't win games in the NFL with 5 turnovers. I mean, the Cowboys had a chance to come back and win this game. Tom Coughlin's still asking himself, how did it happen? I know. But the Cowboys didn't play well enough offensively to win this game. Defensively, I thought Rob Ryan came in with a nice game plan, and those guys played awfully well there. But offensively, just you can't spot a good football team like the Giants, 23 points and overcome it.
Bradshaw, as the Cowboys will spend their 2nd timeout. Turnover after turnover after turnover in the first 18 minutes of the game. 3 interceptions, a fumbled punt by Des Bryant, but they hung in there. Interception returned for a touchdown by Pierre Paul. 2 drives ago, a Jones fumble running into his own man, and then the interception, 2nd of the game by Stevie Brown.
Well, you know, people ask, you know, how can the Cowboys be now 3 and 4? They've got a top 10 offense, a top 10 defense. And the reason is because they turn the ball over on offense and they don't create enough takeaways on defense. And then they beat themselves. And the Giants were not excused in that area in this game either. But that's something overall, as we've talked about, the Giants don't do. They don't turn the ball over. They're not penalized. They don't beat themselves. And that's why they're walking out of here once again from Cowboys Stadium with a victory.
Now they're still waiting on the spot of this ball to see whether or not Bradshaw got the first down. If he does, the game's basically over. If he doesn't, and it doesn't appear as though he got there, it'll bring up a 4th down. Weatherford is already on the field, and Des Bryant is already standing back in his own 30-yard line. And if you're wondering, Steve Weatherford, his entire NFL career, 472 punts, has never had a punt blocked. I know what Des Bryant's doing. Ran from his 30 and sprinted all the way back to midfield. Cowboys are coming after this thing. Booming punt by Weatherford. And just kicks it out of bounds. Well, the Cowboys with a fighting chance, although they're out of timeouts. 44 seconds remain. Told you the Giants won the first ever game in this stadium. 2009 and 2010. Michael Boley knocked out Tony Romo, fracturing his clavicle in a 41-35 win. And then the miracle last year, Giants rallied from 12 down in the final 5.5 minutes to win 37-34. Of course, Jerry Jones had made the comment before the season started about fans come on down to Cowboy Stadium and watch the Cowboys kick some giant tail. Well, they beat them in the opener in the Meadowlands. And 44 seconds away from a season split. Incomplete.
Yeah, it's interesting to see then how the Giants are going to play this defensively, and playing pretty soft on that particular coverage. Initially it looked like they might come up and challenge them, and I was a little surprised to see it, but then they were just disguising the look. Came off of that with 4 guys across deep, and then trying to just rally and come up and make a tackle. Obviously they want to not allow the Cowboys to catch it and get out of bounds and keep the clock running.
Down the middle of the field, Witten, career high 16 catch. Clock continues to run. 16 catches is a Cowboy single game record. Spiked it with 25 seconds left.
Second and 10, Cowboys at the 43.
Coming up, the OT presented by Lowe's in Game 4 of the World Series. And for so many of you, once more, we're thinking of you along the eastern seaboard of the United States with Hurricane Sandy. Giants will be flying back into that, or at least into that vicinity after the game here today. Romo fires, and it's caught at the 41-yard line by Des Bryant. 19 seconds left in the game.
Well, they're going to keep it interesting because now they're in a position to where they can get the ball into the end zone. So even if they don't get any more yardage here on the next play or two, they're in a shot to where they can throw a Hail Mary and have this thing come down to the last play.
Dandy Don Meredith was the quarterback. November 10, 63, the last time the Cowboys had 3 receivers with 100 or more yards in a game, which they have today in Witten, Austin, and Bryant. Tackling 5 more. 17th catch, and we mentioned that is a Cowboys single game record for the guy who, really it might only be 2 weeks from now, will become the franchise leader all time for receptions. He came into this game just 21 catches behind Michael Irvin. Romo going to throw it to the end zone. And it is a miracle touchdown for Bryant.
as he's coming down. Looks like it lands on the line. It looked like it was going to be close the entire way as to whether or not he was in bounds. The hand hits on the back line before any other part of his body touches down. You know, Stevie Brown was in position to make a play on that ball. He never gets over the top. And so what looked to be a touchdown now looks like it's coming back.
The previous play is under review.
They're taking a look. Is it a touchdown? Is it not a touchdown? How about it, Mike Pereira?
Oh, what a huge play in high definition television. To me, the fingers are out of bounds. I think they've got to reverse this to an incomplete pass. Still will have another play, but watch the fingers touch here. As you zoom in and take a look, you can actually see hand touching there, fingers touching. That's the first thing that touch. To me, that makes the pass incomplete.
After reviewing the play, the receiver's hand touched out of bounds prior to him gaining possession of the ball. The pass is incomplete. It is 3rd down and 5 on the 37 with 6 seconds on the clock.
Let's first show how he got up open. He runs a double move, and you know, Webster bites on it, which I'm not sure why he did that. But then it looked like Stevie Brown coming over the top as the middle safety had a chance to make a play on the ball as well. None of that happened. Des Bryant's able to make the catch, but you see, I mean, had he have hit down before his hand hits, it's a touchdown, and that's how close it was. Now, as Mike Pereira said, I mean, there's still 6 seconds left on the clock. They've got one more shot at throwing this into the end zone.
And Des Bryant's finding his helmet. And telling somebody, Dwayne Harris, to get to the sideline. So the call on the field was a touchdown. Bryant is having to walk off. He was injured on the play. Landed very hard on his hip. Of course, he already had a groin injury last week against Carolina. 6 seconds remain.
Romo's spending a lot of time in the huddle talking about this, so you wonder if they're going to try to do something a little different than just throwing a Hail Mary with everybody streaking down the field.
Well, it was the correct call.
Please reset the game clock to 10 seconds.
It was the right call. Hand comes down, fingers out of bounds before his backside landed clearly in the end zone. So the replay officials got it right. So they add 4 seconds to the clock.
Well, the Giants, they want to talk about it themselves. They just called a timeout to talk about it. They've got the whole defense coming over to the sidelines.
I think Tom Coughlin is still a little bit upset about that spot. Going back to the handoff to Ahmad Bradshaw on a 3rd down call that he thought had plenty enough to get the 1st down, which forced the Giants to have to punt it back to the Cowboys on this drive. He was livid on the sideline. But were it not, they say it's a game of inches, and it might be the oldest cliche in the book, but if there's ever an example, it's where those fingers landed in the back of the end zone of Des Bryant. The second bend of your fingers. Still a shot. Three-man rush. They get a little closer as Witten tiptoes out of bounds at the 28-yard line. Well, now's your shot in the end zone.
Well, now's their shot, and now they can run a more designed play. You know, as opposed to just throwing it up, they can try to run a play that they've practiced on from the 27-yard line. See if this front, they'll rush 3, whether or not the Giants would be able to get any kind of pressure on Romo.
And Bryant still injured over on the sideline. And here we go. Romo steps up, throws, and through the fingertips of Austin, there's a second remaining. Perhaps a break. I'm not sure if Austin makes that catch, if he's not going to come down short of the goal line.
Yeah, it sure looked like if this ball was thrown lower and he catches it, that Webster's there, and then along with Stevie Brown, that they more than likely make the play before he's able to get into the end zone. So you're probably right on that, and we keep thinking we're coming down to the last play, and now here it is.
Des Bryant has come back in. Final play of the game, and timeout is called by the Giants. You know, Troy, I think most people say, okay, you know, everybody and his brother knows you got to throw the ball to the end zone here. So if you're Jason Garrett, are there plays you work on to try and fool somebody, I guess for lack of a better word, to try to find a way to indeed get the ball in the end zone on the final play of the game?
Absolutely they do, and as we just saw on that last play, you know, as simple as it sounds, from the 27-yard line, they have a shot to hit Miles Austin in the seam, and it's going to take some sure tackling to keep him out of the end zone. I mean, they're not going to line 8 guys up along the goal line, and so you've got the pass rush, you've got guys that are playing somewhat underneath, and you've got 4 deep. You've got 4 deep guys that are then trying to make a play on it.
Three-man rush. Romo throws, and that's going to do it. The New York Giants go to 4-0 here at Cowboys Stadium, and they are 6-2 in command of the NFC East. A spectacular game for Witten, but Tom Coughlin's Giants win it